must already know what the announcements are. Especially with regard to this class, we are going at a very nice pace, which I don't want to necessarily change or try to speed it up too much, because it's a very good pace. I don't have any problem with the pace. So, two things we have to do. What are those things? Huh? Extend means people will run away right now. Extend means, what does extend mean? That's the question, So I think I have come to a solution. What is that solution? Initially, when I was making up the timetable in that calendrical format, I had put 7:30 to 10 in the morning, and then I got into the nitty-gritty of planning the break and everything, and then we broke at 9:45. Starting today, we'll go up to 10 each weekend. Okay? 15 minutes we'll eke out wherever we can. Then, on the 12th, what do we have? The valedictory function. Correct? And that was supposed to be at what time, you said?
I think 8:30.
Yeah, we'll make it at 10. So we'll have the 2 more classes we'll eke out. And then we'll also do one more thing. Because this Upanishad has a long portion at the end which talks about what you get as a result of chanting it. We are Vedantins, we are emotionally mature people, we don't need a reward at the end. The reward is the Upanishad. Yeah, the reward is in fact the Upanishad, and all the things that you are, every minute is a reward. The unfolding of this entire Upanishad is a reward. And if you dare to disagree, raise your hand. So the whole Upanishad being a reward, you don't need a reward of what happens when you chant it at the end. Because that is for people who are only chanting the first portion of the Veda without really knowing the meanings. They know Sanskrit, but they don't know the meaning of everything. And so for such people it is given, that some little, what is that? Little apple at the end. Carrot, apple, carrot cake, whatever you want to say. This is for such people. In fact, the truth is, when we chant this at our ashrams, we don't include that last part, because we are Vedantins. We don't really care about what happens, and I can give you briefly, in 5 minutes or less, what it says, so that you don't feel like I have left out the Upanishad. So I leave that for the very end. And so we can concentrate on actually what the Upanishad is saying, which is a greater reward than what you will get out of chanting it. Because the main thing you're going to get out of understanding it and then chanting it is moksha. That is what? You're going to be reunited with your own glory. And that is the greatest phalam. Phalam means what? That is the greatest result. You don't need anything better or bigger than that. Yes? Yeah. Nobody is saying anything online, which is good.
They can hear it for sure.
They are hearing everything. Which is good. Yeah. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Bhadram Karnebhihi
ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः
शृणुयाम देवाः
शृणुयामदेवाः
भद्रं पश्येम
भद्रं पश्येम
अक्षभिर्यजत्राः
अक्षभिर्यजत्राः
स्थिरैरङ्गैः
स्थिरैरङ्गैः
तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः
तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः
सस्तनूभिः
सस्तनूभिः
व्यशेम
व्यशेम
देवहितं यदायुः
देवहितं यदायुः
स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो
स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो
वृद्धश्रवाः
वृद्धश्रवाः
स्वस्ति नः पूषा
स्वस्ति नः पूषा
विश्ववेदाः
विश्ववेदाः
स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो
स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो
अरिष्टनेमिः
अरिष्टनेमिः
स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु
स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः त्वं वाङ्मयस्त्वं चिन्मयः त्वं वाङ्मयस्त्वं चिन्मयः त्वमानन्दमयस्त्वं ब्रह्ममयः त्वमानन्दमयस्त्वं ब्रह्ममयः त्वं सच्चिदानन्दाद्वितीयोऽसि त्वं सच्चिदानन्दाद्वितीयोऽसि त्वं प्रत्यक्षम्
त्वं प्रत्यक्षं
ब्रह्मासि
ब्रह्मासि
त्वं ज्ञानमयो
त्वं ज्ञानमयो
विज्ञानमयोऽसि
विज्ञानमयोऽसि
Anandamayah, we saw Brahmamayah. Here, Mayat, the suffix Maya is not to be taken as modification or preponderance. And what is the third meaning? It's itself, in itself complete. So that is the Swarthe, rarely used, but you can't give that meaning when you hear a name Chinmaya. Chinmaya means modification of Chit. Nobody should give that name. Tanmaya, Chinmaya, like that. Or mostly Chit. That also you cannot have. Mostly Chit means, except little bit of not Chit. A Chit and Chit mixed. There is actually a Vada. Chit Jadayo, that Samanvaya Vada. A Vada that says, a Vada means a philosophy of sorts. They call it philosophy, really. It should not be elevated to that thing at all. So there is a Vada that says, Chit and Achit. The Atma is mostly Chit, little bit Achit. Because the Achit portion of the conscious self, the non-conscious portion of the conscious self, see how ridiculous this Vada sounds. The non-conscious portion of this conscious self gives rise to non-conscious insentient things like mountains, rivers, 5 elements, rocks. Rock is in the head of the people who give this Vada, that's all, Or they have not studied Mundakopanishad, where it says, Yatha Sat Purushat Kesha Lomani. Just like out of the sentient being, you have two insentient things always coming out. What is that? Hair and nails. When you go for a haircut, you don't need general anesthesia, right? Do you need general anesthesia? No. Why? Because the hair is insentient. Are you sentient or not? Yes, because as long as the hair is attached, if a child pulls the hair, you say, "Ow!" But as long as it is not connected to the head, then it becomes insentient. Same thing with the nails. So out of that same sentient being, insentient things can also come. So really speaking, Chinmaya, Anandamaya, all this we have to see it as Chit, completely nothing but itself alone, in its own sense. There is no other sense in which it is used. So from Anandamaya, and same thing with Brahmamaya, mostly Brahman, little bit Abbrahman. We cannot take it like that. It is of the nature of Brahman alone. And then to reiterate that much we have seen last week. Tvam Satchidanandat Advitiyosi. Satchidananda Advitiya Asi. Satchidanandat Advitiya Asi. You are not separate from Satchidananda. That, what does that mean? This is what is called Swarupa Lakshana. This has a very good play between Tatastha and Swarupa Lakshana, because these three things are going to come later and again in a different way, and I think they came even earlier. Let's see which mantra. Yeah. Sarvam, where was that? Yeah. Tvameva kevalam dhartasi, hartasi, kartasi. Correct? You are the creator, you are the resolver, you are the sustainer. We already saw that. And then the same thing is said here later on, but here it was said, Tvam Sakshad Atmasi Nityam. You are Sakshad Atma alone. And this is all what is called Swarupa Lakshana. What is Swarupa Lakshana? The delineation of one's own nature. And your own nature is Bhagavan's nature also. There is not an iota of difference between your own nature and Bhagavan's nature. And so this is not a question of anthropomorphization of Bhagavan. Oh, Bhagavan is getting angry, Bhagavan is getting hungry. No, that's not what is involved here. This is a statement of a fact. This is how the Mahavakya works, by unveiling those portions, by going cognitively unveiling. You don't have to remove the powers, the threefold powers of Bhagavan, which are to create, to sustain, to destroy, because you have those very powers, albeit in an inhibited form, as it's going to show later on. It's not at the level of the manifest power that you are equating yourself to Ishvara. And so at what level is this, made? It is made at the level of the Swarupa Lakshana alone. At the essential nature, the intrinsic nature of you is what? Satchidananda. The intrinsic nature of Bhagavan is what? What is the intrinsic nature of Bhagavan? Satchidananda. Why it's taking so long? Yeah, Satchidananda alone. What else can it be? So at that level there is no difference at all, and this has to be established. This has to be established by uncloaking the jiva from the cloak of misery. And I have told you, a fear-lined, tear-lined coat, not fur-lined, fear-lined coat. The fear is what protects. You think, oh, this fear is keeping me warm. Yeah, but the fear soon becomes tears. Yeah, that's all it is. It's not fur-lined. Fur-lined, okay, it keeps you warm, artificial fur we are talking of. And then fleece-lined. But this is not that kind of fur. This is fear. First it's fuzzy and furry, and then it's fiery and teary. Yeah. First you admire this cloak. Oh, thank God, I'm separate from everything else. I'm so cozy. You admire it, and then you are mired in this cloak. This is what it is. So the uncloaking of the jiva is achieved by the Mahavakya. And what does the Mahavakya do? It's a laser Vakya that cuts through this cloak. Yeah, on this side, on the Tvampada side. And it's a laser Vakya that cuts through that cloak. All power, all might, all knowledge, all majesty. Limitless everything, Power to create, power to sustain. So that's a laser Vakya that cuts through that cuts this cloak into shreds. First it this cloak of the of the miserable cloak, it tears it up into shreds. And once it does that, it doesn't have to tear the other cloak into shreds, because divested of this cloak, you are nothing but that. Anyway, that cloak you just see through, and that seeing through is called, lakshana. This is why the vakya works on the form of lakshana. Not vachyartha, but lakshyartha. What is vachyartha? Direct meaning of a spoken word. Bring me some water. It's a, vachyartha. You don't say, okay, what does water stand for? What does bring really mean? You don't think about that. Unless it's a code word, Bring me some water means bring me something that looks like water, but it is something else. So that's not what is, then it becomes lakshyartha. So vachyartha, bring me water. That's all what is intended, that's all what is meant, and the water is asked for, the water is brought. Lakshyartha, the white runs. White runs? Colors also started to run. Shveto dhavati. What runs actually? The ashwa, the word is missing. The white horse runs. Or the white dog runs. Shunihi dhavati. Shunihi dhavati. Or horse runs. Ashwaha dhavati. So many things you have to add something else, correct? But everybody understands what this white means, depending on the context. When you say white runs, you know that the color cannot run unless, we are talking of a leaking color. Color does not run. So obviously you have to bring in something that is missing. So you don't give up the word either white or runs, correct? You bring in another word called horse. This is called ajaha lakshana, where nothing is given up, but a new word is brought in to complete the sentence, to give it an indirect meaning, to recover its indirect meaning. Ajaha lakshana. Jahal lakshana, bring me water. But actually I mean vodka, but I am saying water. It's a code word. Then what do I do here? When the words bring me water are not vachyartha, they are lakshyartha, then this is a different kind of lakshanas. See closely. In the first instance, the word horse had to be brought in to complete the meaning and to understand this, correct? And here the word water has to be given up. What is that called? Jahal lakshana. Jahat means to give up. Jahati, gives up. So Jahal lakshana, to give up. So here the word water is completely given up and you understand something else, correct? In its stead. And here in the word Satchidananda, Tvam Satchidananda Dvitiyosi, Advitiya Asi, you are non-dual and you are non-dually Sat Chit Ananda. What kind of lakshana are we using? What kind of an indirect meaning are we deploying here? Is it something to give up? No? Are you sure? There is nothing to give up? To discover that you are Satchidananda? There is nothing to give up? Really?
Well, ignorance.
Huh?
Ignorance.
Ignorance, and what else? Where is the ignorance residing? Huh? The body, mind, sense complex is given up. Correct? But then something else is also brought in. Something else is not given up. What is that? The essential nature of that which is sustaining this ignorance. That form, is taken apart. That form is, and the name and the form are given up. And the essential nature is retained. But that is not true in the case of bring me water. But here, vodka is brought without a drop of water. So therefore, That is Jahal Lakshana. But here is a new kind of Lakshana. Jahal Lakshana. Jahat Lakshana and Ajahal Lakshana. Ajahat Lakshana. Both are deployed. Certain things are given up, and what is given up is that which is finite. The finite is given up and the infinite is retained. So Satchit Ananda is finite or infinite? Infinite. Should we retain it? Yes. What should we give up? Huh? Body, mind, senses on this side of the miserable, fear-lined, tear-lined, cloaked person. Yeah. Cloak and dagger. Yeah. Correct? Cloak is the defense, dagger is the offensive fellow. Then on the other side, what we should give up? All the glory. All the glory, the status, the power is given up. How is it given up? I'm going to make Bhagavan powerless. No. It's cognitively given up. You see through that. That's why I said that the vision coming through the words of the teacher are a laser. The laser beam that sees through all these cloaks, the trappings. So therefore, Tvam Satchidananda Asi, Advitiyosi Tvam. When you say, what are you really saying? Aham Satchidanandosmi, Aham Advitiyosmi. Because you cannot call Ganapati non-dual and keep yourself separate. Hey there, non-dual one. You cannot wave and say non-dual, because when you wave, who is the waver? Who is the one waving? Separate from the one which is receiving the wave. Or if you are a traditional Hindu, you will say Namaste, which you said earlier, Namaste Ganapataye. You said that. So who is the one saying Namaste? Here the one saying Namaste is Satchidananda Atma. The one who is saying, you said Namaste, I am counting you in your good karma things, is also Satchidananda Atma. So the receiver of the Namaste is who? Satchidananda. The sayer of the Namaste is who? Satchidananda. And then the act of Namaste is what? Satchidananda. No receiver, no this. Then of course the teenager will ask the question now. And why I have to say Namaste? Why I have to say Namaste? Why I have to go to bow down? Why I need the temple? Why I need an altar of surrender? This comes back to that. That is why to deal with such either asked or unasked questions, the Upanishad, keeps flipping between the Satchidananda definition and the Bhagavan definition, both. Between the Swarupa Lakshana and the Tatastha Lakshana, it keeps flipping, because if you understand that everything is one and that includes you, then there is no need to say Namaste. Oh, but I don't understand it, not all the time. Okay, better keep saying Namaste. How many times? As many times as the words will allow. Wake up with a Namaste, sleep with a Namaste, in between also keep saying Namaste Ganapataye. Keep saying that. So by saying that I will know I am non-dual? No, you will know you are non-dual only through attending the classes. That is the only and the primary way. But what does Namaste do? Namaste makes the ahankara, the duality, surrender and resolve into that which is whole, complete and non-dual. That's the function of Namaste. The function of Namaste is to resolve that into one, because the non-duality is achieved for this ignoramus jiva step by step. Yeah. In addition to the teaching. The teaching takes care of that feeling of separation, which can be helped by, to assimilate. It helps to assimilate the teaching for the one for whom the Shravanam leaves one with a lot of vagueness, doubt and error. For such a person, if the Shravanam has done its job, then the Namaste is enough. You have done enough Namastes. But if the Shravanam has not done its job, or you feel it has left something to be desired, there is this gap or separation, between the namaste, the one who I am saying namaste to, and myself, if there is that gap, then that has to be resolved. And that for such a person, this additional step is anivarya, is not even worth talking about. It has to be done. It's compulsory step. And what is that step? It is, it's an ingenious step where all that is all powerful and all knowledge, all might is seen as limitless. And then I include myself in that limitlessness. I go under the umbrella of that limitlessness. Even though I am already in that umbrella, I make a conscious effort to go in it, under it. And then what? I bow, and the bowing, something is very nice, The bowing shows a very important aspect. It's beautiful. And it's there even in the nature. All the trees in the storm that bend do not break. Think about it. And all the people that have the ability to bend do not break. The bending, whether it is physical or it is enacted or called Sashtanga Namaskara, Urasa, Shirasa, Manasa, Janubhyam, Padbhyam, this is the Sashtanga Namaskara. Namaskara with eightfold Namaskara. What is this eightfold Namaskara? 8 parts of the body go flat on the floor. What is that? The chest, the forehead, the hands, the legs, the knees, all these body parts. And then finally the mind. You cannot have the mind standing up and the body flat on the floor. That is not Sashtanga. Finally the mind also says, I am with you, with the body. And that is called, that does something to deepening, not only to deepening the understanding, but to removing this viparita bhavana of separation. That alienation with which that helplessness that we talked about earlier. Because when you bend, what happens? The bending is a upalakshana. What is upalakshana? A metaphor. The bending is a metaphor for humility, to discover the humility. Why? Because otherwise the ego is always terrorizing, it has the reign of terror. Certain dictators, we call it the reign of terror, like Hitler. Hitler's reign is called the reign of terror. Then there is an inner Hitler. Yeah. And what is this inner Hitler? The inner Hitler has this reign of terror unleashing right at the same time. Inner Hitler is the ahankara. I am everything. Of course you are everything. You don't have to tell me that. No, I am bigger than Ganapati. This is what happened to Hiranyakashipu. And Hiranyakashipu said, everyone in my whole kingdom should say, Om Hiranyaya Namaha. Don't follow it by Hiranyalingaya Namaha. No. Only stop there. Don't resolve it into Ishvara. My name is Hiranya. And everybody should say Hiranyaya Namaha. And everybody complied because they were afraid. They were just hapless citizens of this. Because of some bad karma, they were hapless citizens of this terrorist who pretended to be king, who was masquerading as a king. And then what? One person kept saying, Om Namo Narayanaya. What? Say Hiranyaya Namaha. Om Namo Narayanaya. What? And who was this person? He sent his sentries. Find out where is this dissonance coming from. When you are used to cacophony, music is dissonance. And when you are used to untruth, truth becomes dissonance. And they caught hold of a youth and brought him in front of this Hiranya. And the youth was who? Prahlada, who happened to be his own son. Who was saying what? Om Namo Narayanaya. When everybody else was saying Om Hiranyaya Namaha. And so he said, he cannot say cut off his head because it's his own son. So he gave him all kinds of punishments. tied him up, threw him into a dungeon, and out of the dungeon sound came Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo Narayanaya. And then finally the the father and the son had a big argument, a big spat. He said, "Where is your Narayana?" And little boy Prahlada said, "Where is he not? He's everywhere." Is he in this pillar? Yes, he is in this pillar. In fact, he is the pillar of the universe. What are you talking about? Is he in this pillar? And Hiranya, out of great ego, kicks and breaks the pillar. And Hiranya was a devotee gone wrong. This is what can happen at any time. That's why the devotion has to be constant. Even after gaining the knowledge, the devotion becomes a natural and a spontaneous outpouring of the individual body, mind, sense complex that has gained the knowledge. It's a spontaneous and a natural way of being. That's why Bhagavan Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, Jnani Bhakta, the one who is a Jnani, Atma eva me matam, is myself alone, non-separate from me. And so what happened to Hiranya when he kicked the pillar? The pillar broke. This fellow was strong. And this fellow was a devotee in the beginning. What kind of a devotee? Artharthi devotee, meaning, I wanted something out of matlab devotee. I want this, I want that. And he asked Bhagavan, I don't want to die inside the house. I don't want to die outside the house. This is all the stupidity of not knowing you are already immortal. And we are not talking of the body. Silly fellow, ignorant fellow. Ask for ignorant boons. That's what happens. You don't know what to ask for. I don't want to die, on the floor. Okay, tathastu. I don't want to die in the air. Don't catch any planes then. Bhagavan wanted to say, but he said tathastu instead. I don't want to die in the morning. Okay. I don't want to die at night. I don't want to die by the hand of a man. Okay. I don't want to die by the hand of an animal, by the leg of an animal, by the teeth of an animal. All right, no problem. I don't want to be killed in the afternoon. Okay. Always there is a loophole, correct? In all the things you ask for. He forgot an important clause. Pun intended. Clause. So then an avatara in the form of Bhagavan had to come, which included all the loopholes. Very quickly you can find. Bhagavan was a lawyer incarnate here. Found out all the loopholes in his boon. Did not go against himself, because going against the boon would have been easy, but that means you are going against your own word. Bhagavan could not do that. So a terrifying form, screeching, roaring form emanated from the pillar. And we have to take it just in this way, that that was the only form that had ingeniously seen all the loopholes. Neither human nor animal, in between, half man, half lion, Narasimha Avatara. And then it happened to be neither day nor night, it was twilight, Sandhi period. And it was neither in the house nor outside the house. The Lord grabbed him and took him on the threshold. It was neither up nor down. The Lord put him on his lap. And then the story is a gory tale. Gored the navel. The navel region, we'll see this later, is a region of pride, arrogance. That's the seat of the ahankara, is the navel. And so, again, we don't have to take this literally. Meaning, he made forcibly the ahankara, destroyed the ahankara so that the person had to bend. In fact, gave Hiranya the moksha. That's what happened. Gave him moksha. Stopped his reign of terror, literally. And so, this is what is the step by step. That bending has to happen. That bending in the mind, in the attitude, and that bending is a place of receptivity. It's a place of Shraddha. It's a place of devotion. It's a place of discovering humility. That bending must not be compromised. That's why the Namaste, the Namaskara is there to all that is grand, all that is great, including the teaching. This is the greatest thing. So the Namaste is constant. And then you have an altar which is not an altar of anything, but an altar of surrender that has the power to alter your notions about yourself, about the Jagat, about Ishvara. That's why it's called altar, because it alters. Yeah. That's what it is. It's an altar of surrender, however you spell it. And there, it's the only place where I learn how to keep on bending. I learn, just like yoga, you need classes. You need classes on how to bend. And that happens in the shrine room, where you learn how to bend. Or in the teaching situation, when you see the glory of everything, you learn how to bend. Yes. And so here, Tvam Satchidananda Dvitiyosi. And when you say that, what are you saying? That is the process of surrender. And when you are Advitiya, oh Lord, what am I? Dvitiya? No. I am also Advitiya. I am also limitless. And then what? It's the repetition. We have seen this before. Tvam Pratyaksham Brahmasi. You are the only Brahman I know. Oh, there are some more unknown Brahmans. How many Brahmans there are? One. And what is it that I know? You. And if I know you, I know everything. Tvam Pratyaksham means you are Brahman who is manifest. You are the only form of manifest Brahman that is easy to relate to. That I have manifest here in you in this particular form. I have invoked you and manifested you in this particular form. Look at the beauty of it. I am the one who has given you form. And so that I can learn the truth of you and myself as formless and nameless. So the form becomes a temporary step to negotiate my own ragadveshas. And then what? Tvam jnanamayaha asi. And then it is repeated, vijnanamayaha api asi. What is this jnanamaya and vijnanamaya? Again, we be careful of maya. Maya doesn't mean little bit left, mostly knowledge, little bit ignorance. That is also another dangerous vada. Chijjadayoho, samanvaya vada, and ajnanayoho samanvaya vada. Brahman is mostly knowledge, little bit ignorance. Because Jiva has ignorance. Where could it have come from? It has to come from Brahman only. So let us conceptualize Brahman as mostly knowledge with a shadow of ignorance. Is that possible? No. But I am the shadow. Well, continue to be the shadow. That's all we have to say to this shady fellow. You can't alter Brahman because of your own perception. Look at the Upanishad. You cannot alter the words therein just because it fulfills some ignorance that you think you have. Or it fulfills your agenda. You cannot, put the square peg and, put it in the hole, which is a different shape. So here too, Jnanamaya, Vijnanamaya, the word Maya, the suffix Maya has to be understood as itself, completely and totally itself. So Jnanamayaha asitvam, Vijnanamayaha api asi. And what is Jnanam?
Knowledge
What kind of knowledge?
of self.
What kind of, when you say Satyam Jnanam, that means self-knowledge? Huh? Satyam Jnanam. What kind of knowledge? Still people are hovering around it. Like a helicopter, You have to land in the middle, which means that knowledge, which is free of having the status of the knower, having the status of the known, having the status of the which does not, that impartite knowledge that does not splinter into the knower and the known, sustains at once the knower and the known without splintering into either. That is the answer here. That is what we have to understand. Otherwise, if we say sentient, conscious, everything, we are helicoptering around it and we have to land, And the landing is what? That knowledge, free of having the status of the knower. We discussed this last weekend. Free of being the known, but at the same time, it is that sentience, limitless sentience that sustains the knower without becoming quote unquote the knower, sustains the known without becoming the known. So nothing that is known is without this knowledge, without this jnanam. No knower is without this jnanam. But the jnanam itself is neither knower nor known. Very beautiful. So here jnanamaya means what? That knowledge which is free of being, having a particular finite status, assuming a particular finite status either of the knower or of the known. All right? Understood?
Yes.
Yeah. Say yes even if you haven't understood, because it will come again. What is the next word?
Vijnana.
Ayyo. What to do now? What shall we do now? Huh? What shall we do now? What is this we here doing? We, all of us, no? What is this we? Huh?
Very well.
Very well, yeah. That's well said, very well said. We, the upasarga, the prefix we, has to do with, has a special significance. It means specially. So vijnana means special knowledge. Ayyo. I thought jnanam was enough. Now not only I have to know jnanam, but I have to know vijnanam also. This is getting to be too complicated. I thought this was easy, but now both of them I have to know. No. Actually they are identical. But when they are used together, like Ritam and Satyam, we have to see, because the Veda is not redundant, we have to see what it means. So we go back to looking at in what areas are these words. Where are the other? Where is the concordance of other texts where we see these words being co-used or used at the same time? Where do these words coexist together? Any ideas? Jnanam and Vijnanam together, where else have you seen them coexist? Kutra? No. इदन्तु ते गुह्यतमं प्रवक्ष्याम्यनुसूयवे ज्ञानं विज्ञानसहितं यज्ञात्वा मोक्षसे शुभात्. Which Upanishad is this? Huh? Bhagavad Gita. Tune. Catch the tune. Catch the tune. When that tune comes, immediately Gita. And let me tell you another secret. Because, when such questions are asked, Gita is a safe answer, even if you don't know. If you want to impress, you say Gita, because Gita has everything. Chances are it will have this too. You can fly by saying Gita. Of course, it's a blind flying, flying with the eyes closed. You can say Gita, and most of the time you can get away with it. And, say, that's good. But then the next thing is to discover where it is. Don't just go say Gita and go away. So this is the opening verse of the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which is also named Jnana Vijnana Yoga. That is the name of it. Oh, I only knew Hatha Yoga. Now we have Cat Yoga, Kata Yoga, and Cat Yoga. And we have, is one calendar that has come. Cat Yoga. Yeah, one cat for every month. So there is Cat Yoga, Hat Yoga. Now there is what? Jnana Vijnana Yoga. What is this Jnana Vijnana Yoga? So the words jnanam and vijnanam together used in, in not just in apposition but also having slightly different meaning, have an abiding presence in the Shruti, in the Bhagavad Gita, of course in the Upanishads, in the Veda first, and the Upanishads, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad has some instances. And and then what? Panchakosha, Taittiriya, Vijnanamaya, that is Vijnana itself. It doesn't say Jnana and Vijnana together in the same sentence. That's what we are looking at. So whoever said Taittiriya, that's good. At least some recognition of Vijnanamaya was there. But that is modification. We are not talking of Swarupa. Here we are talking Swarupa. So now we have this beautiful explanation, both in the first portion of the Veda and in the second portion of the Veda, where Jnanam and Vijnanam are used side by side. They coexist. And in the first portion of the Veda, it's a slightly different meaning. Jnanam means knowledge of the ritual. Like I have Jnanam of how to do Agnihotra, how the bricks should be set up, whether you should offer from the left or offer from the right of the fire. In the fire is, because left, right, what is this, Or you have to offer in the middle, because all those three ways are there. And then you cannot just randomly do whatever you want. You have to follow the rules. So you know how to do Agnihotra. That is called Jnana. And even in the Kathopanishad, little Nachiketa was given what? Jnanam. Of what? Nachiketa Agnihi. Of a fire ritual that came to be known after him alone. And what was that? How to go to heaven. That is what it was. So when you get the Jnanam of how to do Somayaga, how to, press the Soma juice, if you can find the correct leaves, now it is extinct, how to press the Soma juice and offer it into the fire, so that you can go directly. They say that the smoke itself leads you to heaven. Not immediately, but that's the direct way to go to heaven. Otherwise, no one will do yajna. So, is the knowledge of the ritual enough? It's just like how to make pongal. This pongal is coming next month. How to make this sweet rice, which is made on January 14th. So you have to cook the rice in some milk and coconut milk, and then you add this brown sugar or jaggery. Then you pound some, what's its name? Pound some cardamoms and roast some nuts in ghee and add it at the end, and some saffron. And then you offer it to Bhagavan and then you eat it. It's made with new rice, You can add some dal also, new crop. It's offered and then eaten. So this is the whole thing. So what happened as a result of this jnanam of how to make pongal? Only mouth watered, that's all. Oh, that sounds good. Oh, when is January 14th? Oh, so far away. Only mouth watered. Did you have the satisfaction of eating the pongal? Say no, quickly, so we can go on. Yeah. No, not at all. So this is the same thing of any recipe, correct? And as Pujya Swamiji says, you have to either eat the recipe or eat the cookbook itself to stave off the hunger, because it just makes you more hungry. You don't have the satisfaction. And so in the first portion of the Veda, Vijnanam is when you apply this Jnanam. Okay, this is the very first portion of the Veda, specific definition. You apply the Jnanam, and then what happens when you apply the Jnanam? Then that means you have to go and get the ingredients. You have to soak the dal and the rice, and then you have to cook them together with milk and coconut milk and all these other things. And then you have to add the nuts and the cardamom. And then it becomes Vijnanam when it's a steaming bowl of pongal in front of you, having offered it to Bhagavan, and then you sit to enjoy it, correct? Then it is Vijnanam because it becomes quote unquote applied knowledge. You apply the knowledge because the knowledge itself is not enough to produce the result of the knowledge. whether it is a heaven going yaga or if it is a Pongal we are talking of. Whether we are talking of Laukika Jnanam, material knowledge like Pongal, or you are talking about spiritual knowledge, Vaidika Jnanam, like how to set off to heaven. Useless pursuit, this heaven. Anyway, so it is still Jnanam alone. It has to be converted to Vijnanam. Now the Gita is an exposition of which part of the Veda? The first or the last? Last, Abba, thank God. Yes. The last portion of the Veda is also called Vedanta, also known as, one more word, quick. Ayyo Devre. Ayyo Deva. Upanishad. Ganapati Upanishad. Last portion of the Veda is called Vedanta, also called Upanishad. Don't forget that. Yes. Yeah. Then what? Upanishad. So in the Upanishad also, Jnanam and Vijnanam are used together. As in the Bhagavad Gita, which is an exposition of the Upanishad itself, which is a reiteration of the Upanishad in simple language. Not so simple, but simpler language. And there also Jnanam and Vijnanam are used, although in a slightly different way. Because it cannot be used in the same way. If you say Jnanam means Shravanam, Shravana Phalam eva Jnanam. Jnanam is the result of Shravanam, listening to a qualified teacher and, with a notion of Shraddha, with an attitude of Shraddha, surrender and devotion. Listening to a qualified teacher who knows what is being said. That itself is enough to produce Jnanam. In fact, Jnanam is not a product of Shravanam. It is actually already your own nature. And what does Shravanam do? The product of Shravanam is to spirit away Ajnanam. It has nothing to do with Jnanam. Yeah, you have to understand this very closely. So when you say Shravanam produces knowledge, what we are actually saying is that it produces knowledge in the same way as the culprit who has hidden away himself somewhere is produced before a magistrate. Was the culprit not there or there? Was very much there. Where was he hiding? In the basement. Then he was produced in front of the magistrate on the third day after he was apprehended. Correct? So in that way the culprit was not missing, it was only missing from view. So the culprit is produced in front of the accused person is produced in front of the magistrate. And so the Ajnanam is produced in front of this laser beam of the truth of oneself, which is called Jnanam, that you are neither the doer nor the enjoyer, you experiencer, you are neither the known nor the knower. You are that which sustains both. And then what happens to this Ajnanam accused culprit? And the Ajnanam is produced briefly in front of this fiery knowledge and is consumed. Yes. This is exactly what happens when the Lord Cupid, who is the one full of desires and whose job is to fulfill all desires, comes in front of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva says, hello. Hi, how are you doing? And what does Cupid do? Cupid gets consumed in the fire of Lord Shiva's hello, which happens to be delivered through the third eye of knowledge. This is what it is, metaphorically. Yeah. And so, metaphorically, Lord Shiva opens the third eye. His third eye is knowledge. It is seeing things not as separate, not as past, present, future. The third eye of non-duality is opened. And this Kamadeva, what was he doing? Simply trying to thinking of himself as big because he is, shooting flowery arrows at the people and bringing people together. That is, we also have that same Valentine Day concept. And his wife was named Rati. Rati means desire. Of course, Kamadeva is married to desire. It's all metaphoric. And Shiva basically burns the desire. And then what? And you see your own nature. That's really what the truth is. Burns through the desire, and you see your own nature. And that is Jnanam, correct? So is there any place for Vijnanam in the Upanishad? No, there should not be. Because Jnanam is complete, it burns Ajnanam totally bhasmasat kurute. Jnanagni. It burns the karma, it burns the broods of all the Ajnanam. Ajnanam comes in brood, comes with the extended family. Ajnanam comes along with the first child. What is that? What is the child of Ajnanam? Huh? Desire, Kama. Kama comes with Ajnanam's grandson, his own son. Who is that? Karma, action. Karma comes with some, twins. Karma has twins. Who are they? Papa Punya or Raga Dvesha was actually Kama there. Yeah, Papa Punya. Papa Punya comes with another child. Who is that? Huh?
Come back.
Punar Janma, come back again. So this whole brood comes. Don't think Ajnanam is a small little thing, no. Yeah, everything comes. With Ajnanam comes samsara, with Ajnanam comes generations of idiocy and and this fire of the third eye of the laser beam of knowledge burns away what? Just Ajnanam? Or just everything? If Ajnanam is burnt, all of the broods are also burnt. First they say Trahimam, Pahimam as they are perishing, and they all perish. Then what is the place of Vijnanam? We will see after the break. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Yeah, I will take